In this video, we're going to learn how to create a vSphere namespace using the SCDC that we've just enabled with Tanzu services. Log into the vSphere UI and select the Workload Management tab. Here we can see Tanzu services has been enabled for our vSphere cluster. Next, navigate to the Namespaces tab and go ahead and click on the Create Namespace button to begin. Select the cluster that has been enabled with Tanzu service and go ahead and provide a DNS compliant name. In this example, we'll create a dev namespace. Let's go ahead and create a secondary namespace. Again, navigating back to the Workload Management tab, under New Namespaces, we'll go ahead and select our cluster, and here we'll call this prod. Before we can consume our vSphere namespaces, we need to configure things like permissions, storage, and VM services. First, click on the permissions and go ahead and select the identity source. You can select any identity source that is available within your vCenter server. Next, we're going to associate a VM storage policy that will be used to provision workloads running within this particular namespace. We'll go ahead and select the default. And finally, we'll configure the VM service. This includes the VM classes, which are t-shirt sizes that will be used to provision Tanzu Kubernetes Grid Cluster Service VMs, as well as standard VMs using the VM service. You can also create additional VM classes. Next, click on Add Content Library. Here, you'll associate a content library that contains the various Kubernetes versions that will be available for you to provision. VMware automatically syncs our content library into the SCDC, which is simply called Kubernetes. Go ahead and just click on that. As you can see, our vSphere dev namespace is now fully configured and ready for consumption. We have 16 associated VM classes that are available for you to consume. You can also create custom VM classes that meets the needs of your organization. And here we have a single vSphere content library that contains all the different Kubernetes releases that's available to you. Another cool thing about Tanzu services on VMware Cloud is the control plane address, which you'll connect to deploy and consume your workloads. VMware automatically provisions in the DNS entry for this control plane address, which means that you no longer have to remember an IP address, and it follows a very consistent naming standard based on the cluster that you've enabled for your given vCenter server, as shown on the screen. Make a note of your control plane address, as we will use the kubectl command to connect to our supervisor cluster to begin deploying workloads.